All right, so I'm going to get us all started. Hi, I'm Jacob with the Buren Conservation District. I have the honor and privilege of opening up our fourth Backyard Symposium, a webinar series that connects people with the natural world around us. This year's theme is farming big and small, whether you're a prospective, new, or experienced farmer, hobby farmer, gardener, or interested in growing or raising food. We will have resources and topics for you. In the chat, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you would like to learn. By default, all attendees are muted and with cameras off. This series is recorded and will become available on our YouTube channel. So I'm going to go ahead and read this little housekeeping slide. Welcome to the Backyard Symposium. Message us using the contact form on our website at vanburencd.org/contact-2, or sign up for our newsletter using the subscribe option at the bottom of our website. This webinar is being recorded. Recorded webinars will be posted next week at www.youtube.com/user/vanburencd/videos. Follow us on Facebook at vanburencd and Instagram at bbcdmi. Live captioning is available, and it's that closed caption CC button. So how to ask questions. So click on the Q&A icon to submit a question to the presenter. Type your questions in the box and click the send button. Questions will be asked by the moderator at the end of the presentation. If you need help, utilize the chat button to reach out to me. And I am VBCD moderator help using Zoom. All right, so I'm going to introduce our first speaker of the day, Rachael. Rachael is a farm program technician and county office outreach coordinator with the Farm Service Agency in Van Buren County in the Van Buren County, Michigan office. Rachael is an ASL interpreter, a 4-H leader, and lives on a small dairy farm in Decatur. So Rachael, I'm going to hand this over to you.
Thank you, Jacob. Give me 1 second to share my screen. All right, can everyone see all right? Okay, so I'm with the Farm Service Agency here in Van Buren County. The Farm Service Agency is a federal agency. Within that, the topics I'm going to cover is what is FPAC, the Farm Production and Conservation, and the agencies within it, the Farm Service Agency being one of them. How does you go about setting up farm records for your farming operation? An overview of just general program eligibility requirements, an overview of our current Farm Bill programs. Then I will briefly talk about farmers.gov and some other various resources that we have available. So just to kind of get some context here, when people hear USDA, they think of a lot of different things, and that's because there are 29 agencies under USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture. What I'm going to be focusing on is going to be FPAC, the Farm Production Conservation, and that is in the far left bottom corner of this chart. And with it, there are technically 4 agencies. One is more business. So then from there are 3. And 2 of those agencies are located in our service center that have some different programs available. Within FPAC, you have Farm Service Agency, who I work for, or FSA, Natural Resources Conservation Service, which is NRCS, Risk Management Agency. When most people talk about RMA or Risk Management Agency, you're talking about crop insurance. And then the Business Center, which is just how we our 3 agencies work together. Within the Pawpaw USDA Service Center, so the Service Center for Van Buren County is located in the city of Pawpaw, Michigan, and it serves different producers, ranchers, landowners. With that being said, some of the programs we have are going to be geared more towards farmers, ranchers, not necessarily for gardeners, but we might be able to hook you up with some other resources through farmers.gov. Or if the Farm Service Agency doesn't have a program, then perhaps NRCS, the Natural Resource Conservation Services, might have something that would better fit. So again, we're located in Pawpaw, Michigan. It's the same place where Van Buren Conservation District is located. And then there is our contact information. Now, in terms of the Farm Service Agency, we are considered the keeper of the records for the FPAC agencies. So even if there's a program, there's no programs with the Farm Service Agency, but you want to work with Lucas or someone else from the conservation section, you have to come see me first still, because you're going to establish those farm records and the payment eligibility for various farm bill programs through FSA. And in our office, I handle both of those. So you would come and visit me. The records that we set up are used by both NRCS and RMA. So if you're working with crop insurance, but not conservation, there's still a couple forms you would have to file with me here at the Farm Service Agency. Within the Farm Service Agency, we have both programs and loans. And loans are not located in every service center, but in Pawpaw, they are. Our farm loans staff is here along with some farm program staff. Now, in terms of getting your farm record set up, a lot of the basics are going to be, I need to know if you're owning or leasing. When you own land, I need proof of that ownership. I can't just take your word for it. So I can look up via the county parcel records if it's recorded there. A copy of a land contract, as not all land contracts are filed with the county parcel records. So a copy of that, or it could maybe be a quitclaim deed, a ladybird deed, a property deed, some sort of finalized documentation that shows that this parcel of land is what you do own. If you lease, then I need a copy of the lease for each piece of ground that is leased. So if you leased 4 different fields from 4 different owners, I need 4 different leases. The leases do need to be signed by all parties, otherwise they're not valid. And if you can't get a written lease, if it's a handshake deal, we do have some FSA policy that we can accept a verbal lease. So that would entail me speaking with the owner and asking a number of questions just to confirm that, yes, this person is leasing your ground for X amount of years or X amount of time. It's this many acres, and just confirming the location so I can verify it. Written leases are preferred, but we can take verbal. And that would be just kind of the starting point. So then I can look in our records and I can find the farm. If the farm maybe is outlined differently than what it is currently, then I might have to do some edits on my end to get it to look like how it should. But then we can get the operator and whoever else is associated with the land correctly associated. In terms of eligibility, it can really depend on how you are doing your business. If you're doing it as an individual, as an entity, and those entities can include a lot of different options, whether it's a limited liability company, limited liability partnership, corporation, a general partnership, a joint venture. There could be revocable trust or irrevocable trust. We do have some nonprofits that work with us. You can have an estate. And then also we do work with Indian tribes. So how you are conducting your business when you're farming and ranching can kind of determine what additional paperwork we need. But in general, there's a couple forms. I know it looks like a lot of forms, but the 80-2047 customer data worksheet. I need to know who you are. I need to know some basic information, contact information, and address so that I can put you in the system and I can have a profile to work with. If I don't have that, I can't do anything else. And that would be for every individual. If it's an entity, it would be the entity and for all of its members, depending on how many it is. The next form is the 80-1026. This form is really important. It is the one compliance form that even if you don't work with FSA or NRCS, but you do have crop insurance, you still have to have that filed here. It is a compliance form for highly erodible land and wetland certification. And it goes back as far as the 80s in connection with some different laws and bills that were passed. The next one would be your CCC 902 Farm Operating Plan. That's where we ask a couple of questions about how you're operating, the contributions that you have from members, what is land, the capital that you use, equipment, management, labor. You have any custom services, like you have someone come and spray for you or harvest for you, just those kind of additional questions. And sometimes you won't, which is fine, but we do have to ask a number of different questions just so we have a good idea of the entire picture of the farm operating plan. The next form is dependent on some programs. So sometimes you don't need it, but if you're going to work with NRCS and any of their programs, it is one form that you need. The CCC 941 Adjusted Gross Income Certification. And that would be certifying that the total adjusted gross income is less than $900,000 per program year. If you were to make more than that, then you wouldn't be eligible for some of these USDA benefits that Lucas and I are going to be talking to you about today. The next form is the CCC 860. This form is optional, but it is very beneficial. So it covers a number of different topics, but they all fall under socially disadvantaged or historically underserved. So whether you're a limited resource, a beginning farmer, so that's within your first 10 years, a veteran, then we have for both gender and minority races. And if it would apply to 50% or more of members of the entity, then the entity itself can be considered SDA, the socially disadvantaged SDA. So that would allow for additional benefits to programs. It might be that your payment limitations increased, that if there was an administrative fee, that gets waived. And I know this is something that's been a big focus, so I'm excited to see what other options and uses it's going to have in our future programs. For any entities, we do need members information. That's where you're just listing, these are the members, these are their shares. This is who has signing authority and can sign papers and talk to you guys about it. Just so we kind of have a screenshot of all of that important information in one document. And then if you were to participate in a program and get a payment, you have to fill out a direct deposit enrollment form so that we can pay you. For anyone working with an entity, we do have a couple additional forms. So some of the forms I mentioned from the last page, like I said, each member has to fill it out along with the entity. And upfront, that might be a little time consuming depending on how many members you have. But once those are on file, those only have to be updated as needed. And then there might be some supporting documentation that we need. And the whole point of it is to have an understanding of the organization structure. So articles of organization, maybe it's an operating agreement. For the trust, it would be a trust document. So we can kind of see who has what member shares, contributions, signature authority, so that someone doesn't come in and say, oh, I can sign. And we just say, okay. And it turns out they can't. So we just need to be able to have documents to support that information. And then for any entity using an employee identification number, so an EIN, instead of like a social security number, then we would just need a copy of the letter that you get from IRS to confirm that tax identification. This is not required by all programs, but a good basis of program eligibility if you're going to work with the Farm Service Agency. And some of the other programs that some of the other agencies have is acreage reporting. So for crop insurance, for some of the disaster programs, some conservation programs that I have, you need to file a timely acreage report. So the acreage report, this would not necessarily be gardeners and some of those smaller operations, but maybe if you were planting some corn or doing some fruit and veggies as a hobby farmer and you wanted to report your acreage, then we can get that reported. We do have various reporting deadlines based on crop and within the state or county. Within Michigan, we have the fall before that coming year is when we would report any cover crops, any fall seeded grains like wheat, oats, barley, triticale. And then in the spring, in January 15th, we have the acreage reporting deadline for a lot of perennial fruits. So that's our blueberries, our cherries, apples, grapes, pears, and peaches. And then the next acreage reporting deadline would be January 2nd if you had bee colonies and the honey. And then February 2nd for any maple sap. And then July 15th for all their crops and any of those spring crops like soybeans, corn, if you haven't reported your hay, and some other things like that. And any other fruits that weren't reported in the spring, like strawberries, then could be reported by July 15th. To do that, we would get you, after we set you up with your farm records, we'll get you a map, and that map you would fill out. We'd walk you through it. This is the information we need to know to put on it. We'll enter that information in our system, which will generate the FSA 578 report of commodities. And I have a little screen snip of a cover page on one of those. And that would be once we've gone over it, verified that information is correct, we would sign it. Within farm programs, we do have a lot of different program options. Some of them may or may not continue to be once farm programs. They're all dependent on the Farm Bill. We're currently working off of the 2018 Farm Bill, and that Agricultural Act actually expired in September 30th, 2023. Then because we are a federal agency, with the continuation for the continuing resolution of the budget while Congress is working on the 2024 budget. The second continuing resolution in November actually officially extended that farm bill for 1 year. So any of these programs some were extended, some had some stipulations or were waiting for approval of funding to continue for 2024. And then hopefully at the end of 2024, September 30th, 2024, we will get our new farm bill. And some of these programs might carry over, some will stay and have changes, and there might be some new programs. We don't know at this point. And I'd mentioned before, farm loans is also within the Farm Service Agency. They have different loans, including operating loans, ownership loans, micro loans, so smaller versions of the operating and ownership loans. Youth loans, that's where maybe you want to get a small loan to buy cattle for a 4-H. And then emergency loans. Additionally, a good portion of FSA loan funds are set aside specifically for beginning farmers and ranchers. And based on Farm Service Agency's definition, that would mean the first 10 years since you've been operating a farm. And you can apply for those now online at farmers.gov, or you can come into our service center. Here at our Pawpaw Service Center for Van Buren County, you can ask Alyssa Van Aken or email her at alyssa.vanaken@usda.gov. She covers Van Buren County, Cass County, and Berrien County. farmers.gov. I've mentioned it a couple times. This is actually going to be your online website for USDA. So you'll have some of FSA's programs, some of Natural Resource Conservation Service programs, but you will also have programs from other agencies. I don't believe all 29 agencies are listed there, but a number of them are, so that you can look at different options available. So maybe the Farm Service Agency, we're not really geared towards the smaller or like gardening necessarily, more towards farming and ranching, but maybe one of these other agencies listed there in farmers.gov have resources that you can utilize. So there is a lot of self-service features now. They've are kind of increasing that. So now you can do farm loan payments online. You can look at them. You can view those maps once we get the records set up. And then they have information on various disaster assistance, conservation programs, crop insurance. They keep a list of all the program deadlines, so you can kind of keep an eye on that. Any news that's available, they do some blogs, posts, and some other information, so you can kind of see what's happening. And then various resources. One of them that I wanted to point out is when on there, they're the multiple tabs, but under your business, there is a section just for beginning farmers and ranchers. And you can click on each of those different sublinks that take you to a couple different spots where they walk you through. And this is stuff that they've been updating and continue to add to provide that information that you might need to help you understand or make those decisions about your farm operating plan for you. And additionally, as of actually only last week, Farm Service Agency now has customer kiosks. They are Chromebooks, but they can flip to a tablet mode, and they are set up so that you can access farmers.gov. So if you wanted to get what's a level 2 EOS account, that's where we have your information that you've entered, and we've verified it by comparing it to a driver's license or state ID that are valid, so that we can say, yes, this is this person. They've been authenticated, and then you can have access to additional services like making those farm loan payments, looking at things, making an application, and there are some farm programs that you can sign up for via farmers.gov. And with the customer kiosk, you guys can come in. If you have questions, some of the staff will be right there so that we can kind of help walk you through it and explain things if you have additional questions, which I know will be very helpful for people that are a little intimidated by the computer at first. So that'll give another option to people. And then for any beginning farmer and ranchers that want additional resources within Michigan, FSA's state outreach coordinator, Amy Swenson, is actually our point of contact. So I've put her email, Amy, AIMEE.Swenson, SWENSON at USDA.gov with her work line number if someone were to have additional questions. A link there for farmers.gov for that snippet that I'd shown you. Then we have at our local USDA Service Center here, I put our phone number again, and there is my email, Rachael, RACHAEL .Kidman at USDA.gov. And on the far right, there is a very big, long document with a lot of different links that Amy, our coordinator, put together. And give me 1 second and I will. Oh, sorry. There we go. Hopefully linked this correctly so I can pull it up for you to take a quick peek at. So there is a very long list here of different resources. And while a lot of these aren't the Farm Service Agency. These are different Michigan-specific resources and links to various things for beginning farmers that Amy put together for us. And I have shared this with the Conservation District, so you can reach out to Jacob to get a copy of it, or myself if you'd like to look at it. But it does kind of have just general options of things to look at, some very informative things to look at to learn, some specific links for veterans, for tribes, more crop focused information for beginning farmers, more livestock focused. And at the bottom, there is some information links for floriculture and greenhouse related. So we have that as well if we don't have any programs that necessarily work for you. And I believe now Lucas is going to chat.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rachel. You covered a lot of information in
It
a
was a lot.
short, yes, in a short time span. And I have linked your information in the chat too. So
Okay.
if they need to get a hold of you, they can just reference that in the chat and get a hold of you after the presentation. But like you said, I'm going to
Sounds
go
good.
ahead and hand this over to Lucas. Thank you again, Rachel.
Mhm.
So Lucas is a conservation technician with the Van Buren Conservation District and the NRCS, that's Natural Resources Conservation Service. Lucas is a graduate of Michigan State University's College of Agriculture and Natural Resources, specializing in wildlife biology and management. Lucas has been working for the VBCD for 5 years, helping a variety of landowners make important decisions on how to protect and improve their own natural resources. From wildlife habitat to soil health, wildflower plantings to optimizing fertilizer applications, Lucas can help landowners with a wide variety of potential resource concerns. All right, Lucas, are you ready to take over?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jacob. Thanks, Rachel. Okay, let me bring up my slideshow here. Okay, so like Jacob said, I'm employed by the Van Buren Conservation District, and I work in kind of a partnership with the NRCS here in Van Buren County. So today I'm going to give kind of a brief overview of both of those agencies and kind of what their role is inside the county, and what their missions are and what kind of services we provide. There's lots of things that we could go into. Of course, there's way more than we could discuss in 20 minutes, but we're just going to do a brief overview today. So we're going to start kind of top down and continue where Rachel left off with the USDA. In Van Buren County specifically, when we're thinking about conservation issues and partnering with the USDA, you're going to be dealing with those folks from the Natural Resources Conservation Service. This was originally chartered in 1935 as the Soil Conservation Service, and kind of a response to the effects of the Dust Bowl, the droughts that were happening, the reduced soil quality, and the strain on the food production in the country. Later in 1944, it was renamed to the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and that is the same today. So their role and their mission really is described as: we deliver conservation solutions so agricultural producers can protect natural resources and feed a growing world. So really they've got an investment in making sure that we maintain the natural resources that we have here in the United States, and be able to continue to produce high quality crops and food, fiber and fuel and all kinds of resources for the general public. Their vision is a world clean and abundant water, healthy soils, resilient landscapes, and thriving agricultural communities through voluntary conservation. So this isn't a compulsory organization. In some states or in some locations, you may have rules that limit your use of certain natural resources, but all of the things that you might get involved with NRCS are on a voluntary condition. So if a landowner is having an issue and they want to reach out to somebody, this is a great option. Everything is voluntary, and there's no regulatory like backflow that could happen to the landowner by reaching out. So you don't have to worry about having a problem, bringing it up to this particular agency and then having some sort of fine or something like that come back on you. So basically, to make a long story short, they provide technical assistance to the landowners, help them identify natural resource concerns, and help design and implement remedies for these concerns. One of the biggest ones, like I talked about with the Dust Bowl, was maintaining soil quality. And here we've kind of got a picture of some massive soil erosion in a crop field. And if you kind of look at the left and the right borders of this image, you can see that the problem here is because we've got some concentrated flow of the water. This is a picture of an event that took place a couple of years ago, kind of in central Van Buren County. And even though it looks like this is something that took place over maybe a year or so, or maybe a couple of years to cause this kind of destruction, this is actually something that happened over maybe just a month of some serious rainfall. So just like the picture before, this crop field had kind of a basin that was contributing a lot of runoff and focusing it down a channel in the center of the field. And it was headed towards a drain beyond the wood line you can see in the background of the photo. Well, when a big maple tree gave way at the back, it opened up a new path for the water to run out, and the rest is history for this spot. They lost probably hundreds of yards of material. You can see one of the NRCS personnel there standing inside the cavity. And this is a huge concern. So not everything that we see and we try to help folks deal with is at this magnitude, but this just kind of gives you an example of, even in Michigan, where we don't have very serious topography, at least down here in the Southwest, you can have these sorts of concerns pop up. Nothing to do really with the farmer's practices, just kind of nature at its best. One tree gives way and then we have a huge disaster fallout from that. So what do we do? You can see that the NRCS person there has got some flagging material, and he's kind of evaluating the extent of the erosion here and the soil loss. We help those landowners try and put this problem back together. And how is that done? Well, it's going to be a big expense, right? There's going to be a lot of engineering involved, a lot of excavation, a lot of bringing in new raw materials to kind of help level that out, possibly addressing some of the farm practices in the field, using cover crops. There could be any number of things, and these could all be costly to the landowner, or they may not even know where to begin. So NRCS functions as kind of the free resource to these landowners to help evaluate what are we going to do with this kind of a problem. The resource concerns that we work with, we've got an acronym SWAPA. That stands for soil, water, air, plants, animals, and human-related concerns. Soil could be things, like I said, erosion or loss of organic matter. When we think about concerns that you could have with water resources, this could be pollution or maybe limited access to water. And here again, we're talking about groundwater sources, surface water sources. So this could be irrigation ponds, this could be drainage ditches, this could be groundwater sources, artesian wells, perched aquifers, really anything. When we think about concerns we could have with the air as a natural resource, this could be odors resulting from possibly livestock farms, composting facilities, release of particulate matter. This could happen drought seasons when we've got fields that are subject to wind erosion, and release of greenhouse gases. Maybe you have some part of your management or some part of your equipment use on your property is inefficient or could be improved in some way, and we could reduce some of that, some of those emissions. We deal a lot with plants, obviously, when we're thinking about agriculture and habitat and all these different things. And with that comes pressure from different kinds of pests. So we've got animal pests, plant pests, pathogens, fungus, disease, drought, anything like that. We can kind of help evaluate along with some of our partners and state agencies, Van Buren Conservation District staff, and those sorts of things. Looking at animals, we look at both wildlife and livestock as part of this agency. And so because of some federal acts that are in place, everything that we do through NRCS, we have to evaluate the impact to wildlife habitat. And this can manifest itself in some funny ways. When NRCS is sharing the cost of installing a fence, let's say, for some livestock practices, there are restrictions on how close the fence can be to the ground and how tall the fence can be, basically to allow for the passage of different kinds of wildlife. and different states will have different statutes on those designs exactly, but just kind of gives you a funny example. We deal with livestock systems a lot. We've got a lot of small livestock growers here in Southwest Michigan and some larger production facilities as well. And with livestock comes a whole host of potential resource concerns. How do we keep clean water clean? What are we doing with the manure? Are we spreading it on the field? How long are we letting it stockpile in an area to decompose? Are we composting it properly? How do the pastures look? What's the condition like for the animals? Is there adequate shelter? Do we have noxious weeds that won't be good for the animal health? How lush are the pastures overall? Are they overgrazed? Is there too high of a stocking rate of animals, for example? And lastly, we deal with human-related concerns. So all of these come back to human public health here. When we think about contaminated water sources with over application of nutrients possibly as a fertilizer, that can get down into the aquifers and the groundwater, pulled up through wells and becomes part of potentially residential drinking water systems, municipal drinking water systems, and so on and so forth. And so really making sure that we're taking a look and evaluating all of these resources, they all kind of boil down into that human concern at the end of the day. We also, as an agency, take into account economic concerns. So just like in that picture before, when you're dealing with something this intense, you know, for a small landowner, for a small farmer, the cost of solving this problem can be, you know, somewhere, you know, above $50,000, approaching $100,000 to really get the right fix here. And if we don't do anything, the farmer is going to continue to lose acreage and diminish their ability to produce income for themselves. So we think about those types of concerns, and obviously, depending on somebody's financial situation, we'll come up with different alternatives for solving the problem. So how do they get these fixes on the ground? Apart from coming out with the technical expertise to help exactly what's going on, they help share the cost of these through several programs that are funded through the Farm Bill. The first one that we typically use when there's some sort of disaster or big problem, or the first time somebody's encountered a typical concern, we use the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, and we call that EQIP for short. It's basically a contract between the USDA and the landowner to identify a particular resource concern, prescribe the fix, and get it installed by a certain date and time. Depending on how what the need is for remedying the resource concern, we can schedule these things out over a number of years or try to address them as quickly as possible. So these contracts can vary in length based on the complexity of what's trying to be solved here. If we've got just a pasture that's kind of in rough shape and it needs to be rested for a number of years or a number of months and replanted, this could be a one-year contract between USDA and the landowner to replant the pasture. In that case, the USDA would be sharing the cost of installing that new seeding. But we have more complex livestock systems. Maybe we've got kind of a feeding operation with several hundred animal units. And there's just kind of a disaster with the way the manure is being stored, composted, and spread back on the ground. It may take a longer time, 5 to 10 years, to really fix that problem and get the proper fix in place. So I provided a link here to that program overview. It's pretty vague and it's pretty ambiguous, but that's done on purpose so that we can take the program rule set and basically apply it to the individual landowner. So we've used this program to, like I said, enhance big livestock operations, but we've also used this program to help people employ a forester to evaluate their woodlot. We've used this program to help install pollinator habitat. We've used this program to do a lot of different things. There's over 300 conservation practices, we call them, that you could apply for some cost share on through this particular program. So really the sky is the limit. When you think back to that list of resource concerns, if you're having a problem with any of those different things, there's some way that we can use this environmental quality incentives program to help share the cost of whatever the fix might be. We kind of use this next program as a phase 2, maybe it's a good way to think about it. The Conservation Stewardship Program, also coming through the Farm Bill, kind of is a way of recognizing those folks that have already taken some steps towards improving their conservation on the land. Maybe you haven't worked with USDA in the past, or you have, that part doesn't really matter. But depending on how the NRCS personnel or district personnel can kind of evaluate your stewardship level, you'd be eligible for an annual payment based on that. So if you're doing things like storing and mixing chemicals properly, maybe you are already using cover crops, maybe you're soil testing regularly and making sure that you're applying nutrients in an efficient way. Maybe you're testing plant tissue to get a kind of a better real-time look at the nutrient uptake of whatever crop you're growing. These sorts of things can all build up towards what we call your stewardship threshold, and that comes with an annual payment. This program also asks the producer, the landowner, to kind of go the extra mile with a kind of a new and enhanced conservation project. So if we take the example of cover cropping, we may ask the producer to switch from a single species cover crop to a cocktail mix of species to provide some specific benefit beyond controlling soil erosion, maybe. So let's say somebody had a orchard or a vineyard and they were deciding what to plant in the mid-row, maybe they would want to plant some species that provide, particularly for predator insects and arachnids, that would help reduce the pest pressure on the crop that they're growing. In an example that we might use this in a kind of a forested situation, let's say somebody's already worked with a forester, they've got a management plan in place, they kind of know a little bit more about the species diversity in their woodlot, they've got some idea of invasive species that may be present, they've got a recommendation from the forester on where, boy, we're a little overstocked with this particular species in this area of the woodlot. They could adopt a new project through the stewardship program to do tree plantings for a particular migratory songbird species, or to change how the forest edge interacts with the open field edge to produce more cover for ground nesting birds and small mammals and stuff like that. Each of these new adopted projects also comes with an additional payment to the producer. So EQIP and CSP, these two programs from the Farm Bill, are really interested in investing in the landowner to try and upgrade their conservation on the land. CSP, as compared to EQIP, is a longer term kind of contract. So the landowner in this case is a minimum of 5 years with an option to extend for an additional 5. The project that they want to undertake may not take all 5 years. It may be something that they can get done inside of a year, but those payments that the landowner would receive for their continued stewardship of the land would continue for that 5 to 10 year period. Now, let's say you're interested in just getting some help. You've got plenty of money to fund the fix on your own, or you've got the gumption or the time or the sweat equity to get the thing done on your own, and you don't want to get into a contract with the USDA, and you just need some help kind of identifying what's going wrong here. They have another program through the Farm Bill specifically for this as well. It's called COTA. It stands for Conservation Technical Assistance. And that's basically just the Farm Bill providing funds or personnel time to assist you with whatever resource concern you're having. So this would involve folks taking a trip out to your property or to your farm to help you evaluate some things using a variety of analytical tools. Could involve surveying, could involve soil testing, could involve plant health kind of determinations, could involve the whole number of things. In this case, there's no cost share provided to the landowner, but you're not obligated to actually take on the project of fixing whatever the issue is. So this is kind of a way for somebody to get some help, at least getting the project started, or to get some technical expertise on fixing a situation without being obligated to or seeking any funding from the federal government. So that's kind of a brief overview of the NRCS, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, for now. I recommend that if you have any one of these concerns, you reach out to the field office. We'll have some contact information at the bottom. But in the meantime, does anybody have any questions about NRCS or any of these programs so far? I'll take that as a no. No questions, Jacob?
No questions just yet.
Okay. All right, we'll carry on. So again, I'm employed by the Van Buren Conservation District. Kind of work in the same role as you might work with somebody from NRCS. And that's funded through a grant from the National Association of Conservation Districts to basically work on those resource concerns, help people find the Farm Bill programs that are applicable to them, and kind of and seek funding through those routes. But at the district in general, we've got about 14 full-time employees that cover a huge variety of programs. We really provide a lot to our constituents here in Van Buren County across a huge number of conservation issues. The mission of the Van Buren Conservation District is to promote the conservation of natural resources through partnerships, providing public education, demonstrations, and technical assistance while working together for future generations. And VBCD functions as an educational and non-regulatory conservation resource to our county residents. And in our particular office, we've got over 60 years of experience across all of our staff. I've been here for 5 years. We've got some people that have been in for a short period of time, but we've also got some colleagues of mine that have been here for quite a while, 20 years in some cases. So we've really got some people that are experts in their field. They've seen a lot. They've dealt a lot with the particular resources in this county. So they've got the background knowledge of how all of these systems interact, but they've also got the real on the ground knowledge of how to help the people here in Van Buren County. So we deliver our mission through several conservation focuses, I guess you could say, each with their own kind of team of experts. We work on water quality in the county. We work on conservation and agriculture, forestry and wildlife habitat. We have the MEAT program, which is the Michigan Agricultural Environmental Assurance Program. We have the SISMA, which is a cooperative invasive species management area that's located in our county. And we also do resource recovery. So that may be one way that you guys are familiar with us is through our recycling collections throughout the year. So we'll go into a little bit more detail here. The water quality team basically works on kind of research-based watershed projects. They're interested in evaluating how the practices on the ground from landowners, from farmers, et cetera, are impacting our resources here. Waterways, rivers, streams, groundwater sources, and all these different things. They partner with different universities to get these projects accomplished. They work throughout the year sampling water at different areas to help get an idea of how some of the resources are impacted. And they also host a lot of educational events and small landowner meetings throughout the county, kind of geared towards different groups. So we have a large meeting that we do annually. These are all open to the public. That kind of covers a variety of topics. But then throughout the year, they'll have smaller meetings focused on different areas of production. Could be grain production, could be dairy production, could be fruit production, where they get really specific about what types of management decisions can these types of producers make or be making that could improve the water quality in our county. One of the biggest things we do is conservation and agriculture. So we help identify priority resource concerns for our constituents. On an annual basis, really, we're looking to hear back from all of the people we interact with on what are the priorities for Van Buren County really overall. We offer individualized conservation planning. So let's say you don't have the time and things have really gotten out of control and you need somebody to come and take a look from a totally impartial viewpoint and just help put a plan together for how to solve any kind of resource problem. We do that as well. We help with federal and state programs. So just how I had described with NRCS, we help those folks get involved with Farm Bill programs if they so choose, state programs that might be applicable to their situation and all kinds of things. We kind of act like the liaison or a point of contact for a lot of these different programs. We also help folks with forestry and wildlife habitat. So much of our clientele are agricultural producers, but we've probably shifted, I don't know, close to maybe 25% of the folks that we work with are interested strictly in forestry production and wildlife habitat overall. This can include grasslands, wildflower plantings, scrubland, forested properties, all these kinds of things. Again, we help folks kind of find pathways for funding these different projects. Pollinator habitats in particular can be kind of expensive to install. Sometimes They can be upwards of $1,000 an acre to get the project on the ground. So in many cases, because those plants are handpicked and the seeds are hard to come by. This is a program that you might be familiar with if you've driven around and seen these blue signs. We also house a senior meat technician. His name is Kyle Mead, and the Michigan Agriculture Environmental Assurance Program helps people identify the risk that involved with certain practices. So again, this is a non-regulatory, free, anonymous kind of service that's voluntary for the landowner to try and get an assessment of what are the risk factors in terms of how their management, how their property and what they're doing is interacting with the natural resources around them. In Michigan, we have a piece of legislation called the right to farm. And basically what that amounts to is you have the right to farm really in any way you choose, as long as you're inside of a certain set of rules. These have to do with maintaining water quality, soil health, so on. These MEEP techs will help you identify maybe where you're falling short in some of those categories, maybe where you're meeting the bar in different categories, and what you need to do to become fully verified and get one of these signs on your own property. This can provide you with some legal benefits. Let's say there is a right to farm complaint filed against you for some practice or something that happens, or there's an accident, a spill maybe of manure or fertilizer, something like that. Having this verification will show the state agencies that you've already gone the extra mile to make sure that you've reduced the risk of impacting natural resources. The Southwest by Southwest corner SISMA also works out of our office. And again, that's a cooperative invasive species management area. So in Michigan, we have SISMAs that cover the whole state. And our particular SISMA covers Cass, Berrien, and Van Buren County, but they do work out of our office. So these are kind of the local experts on invasive species management. We've got a number of invasive species. Insects, could be small mammals, and plants here in Southwest Michigan. And really what their role is to help provide the education and outreach to landowners on how to deal with these different pests that they may have. This could include educational events, individual meetings with landowners, and different partnerships with municipalities to help tackle some of these issues. And last but not least, we do the resource recovery for Van Buren County. And you may have been to one of our collections before. So we help to collect tires, electronics, sharps, other biohazard materials, confidential shredding, styrofoam, household hazardous wastes. We have a couple of collections throughout the year. We have one in June in Paw Paw, August in South Haven, and October in Lawrence. These are free to all county residents, and they're usually from 9 till 2 p.m. And we'll take all these materials, and it's really a big event that we collect a lot of materials from every year. I want to take a moment to promote a big meeting that we have coming up on the 13th of March. If you've worked with us before, there's a good chance that you've already gotten some notifications about this, but we host in the second week of March every year a meeting called Farming for the Future. This is open to the general public. There's no admittance fee, so it's free to everybody from 9 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. We've got a variety of topics on overall soil health, grazing systems, and forestry systems this year. Okay, any questions on Van Buren Conservation District's role in protecting resources here?
Yeah, thank you so much, both of you, Rachel and Lucas. That's so much information and so much resources, and I think you summed it up pretty well. Lucas, can you put up your contact slide?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way I would think to get in touch with us, if you're a county resident, please stop by the office. We've got all the staff there, and it really works well when we play off each other and come up with different solutions and go to this person, because all of these concerns are really interconnected anyway. it's really, the best resource that we have is coming to meet us in person. We can look at maps on computers and kind of help you walk through whatever the problem might be. If there's somebody that you want to reach out to in particular, you can find all that information on our staff webpage and directory. So all of our different kind of areas of expertise and program overview is listed there as well. And if you wanted to reach out to me specifically for anything, I've got my number and my email listed here as well.
Awesome, Lucas. Keep that up. I just want to remind everyone that Rachel's contact information is in the chat, and I will bring that up again. So I just sent another chat, so that should have popped up for everyone. Rachel, I'm opening up this Q&A. So are there any programs happening right now that we should know about?
Within the Farm Service Agency, one very popular program people hear about is the Conservation Reserve Program. It is sometimes people will call it a number of things, but it is where you take so many acres as long as it meets the eligibility, and you can put it aside in a contract for 10 years and get annual rental payments on it. The big thing about it is we have to make sure that the land is eligible. So it had to have been cropped to a crop such as like corn, soybeans, and more of those commodity crops for 5 of the 7 years between 2012 and 2017. I'm sure with the new Farm Bill, those years and that numbers will get updated. But for now, that's kind of that criteria. And we have a sign up currently open for the continuous CRP. And we do have a lot of pollinator habitats and some filter strips, native grasses and legume as different conservation plans within CRP right now. But we do have the continuous CRP open. And if anyone has questions about it, that is one of my programs that I handle. So other than some of the regular programs that we normally have, that's one that the signups aren't always happening, but we do have one open right now.
Okay, yeah, and I'll just add to that by saying a lot of the Farm Bill programs that I had described, they also have a continuous kind of sign up, but there are certain program years involved with this sort of thing. So the best time really to get in touch with somebody to get the ball rolling for a federal program would be sometime in October. That way you don't miss any sign up deadlines for the following spring or growing season to get these kind of projects on the ground. The deadlines change every year, but they're usually sometime in the middle of November, we'll have a cutoff for signing up to have the potential to receive funding for any given project. But those signups, they remain open all year round. You just kind of will end up at a different place in line depending on when you get signed up. Obviously, the sooner the better, but October is a good month to kind of keep in mind for those programs.
And October is a good month just to check in because we run our program years off the fiscal year. So it's going to start October 1st and it'll go till the next year of September 30th. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So October 1st of 2023 was actually the 2024 program year. So that's just something to keep in mind. And if you're going to sign up with Lucas, you should get in earlier so you can visit me and we can get you straightened out in your paperwork before you can finish your plan with Lucas.
Awesome. Thank you two so much. So you both covered a lot of information. Do you have any packets to give to new customers that pertains to all this information that they can reference for later?
We do have some kind of new farmer packets or short forms that we've put together in the past. Now, like Rachel said, we will have a change coming to the new Farm Bill that will include new instructions, new program information, and all sorts of things. But really, the best thing to do would be to kind of just reach out to Rachel or myself and say, here's who I am, here's the problems I'm having, or here's the programs I'm interested in. And we can kind of help put together kind of a short list of kind of a to-do list for you as a customer.
And we do have some information here within the service center. Though some of those items we've kind of run out of, and I've ordered more, but because we're changing the farm bill soon, they don't want to give me too many. So we're kind of in a place where I don't have as many packets, but we do have that information available, and we can share these slides or other information as well if someone wants to reach out and have questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you two so much. You two are a wealth of resources, and it sounds like we'll be keeping an eye out for that new farm bill. Again, thank you. Thank you everyone for your thoughtful questions. That's all we have time for today. Thank you, Rachel and Lucas, for taking the time to be with us today. I am gonna share my screen, Lucas. Okay, and again, thank you for attending this session of the Van Buren Conservation District's Backyard Symposium webinar series. We hope that you'll join us for more sessions. Message us using the contact form on our website at vanburencd.org/contact-2/ or sign up for our newsletter using the subscribe option at the bottom of our website. This webinar is being recorded. Recorded webinars will be posted next week at www.youtube.com/user/VanBurenCD/videos. Follow us on Facebook at Van Buren CD and Instagram at VBCDMI. And coming up tomorrow is part 2 of Beginning Farmer. So even more farming and gardening resources in Van Buren County, in addition to the ones that Rachel and Lucas brought up. So exciting stuff. And we hope to see you there. All right. Have a nice afternoon, everyone.